Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here with the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your planning outlook on Monday the 9th of December. It's an active spell of weather that continues through this week with low pressure in charge, some stormy conditions at times on the mountains, but some chilly conditions as well, and many of the mountains fully into winter mode as we go through this week, as freezing levels will tend to drop and the scope for some substantial snowfalls. We'll start off with a look at temperatures. As ever, it's the 850 millibar level. Now, with low pressure in charge at the surface, the level that we find 850 millibars is that bit lower. And on this occasion, it's between around 1100 and 1200 metres below 4,000 feet then through these days ahead. Now, through Tuesday, we've got a warm sector that moves through, briefly very mild air, but an active cold front follows, and temperatures and freezing levels will drop quickly as we go through the later part of Tuesday, and will stay cold through into Wednesday, with the temperatures on the very highest tops in Scotland at around -5 Celsius. Now, we do just get a push of milder air trying to come in from the southwest on Thursday. Now, this may not be a very simple picture. It may be that freezing levels around the northern side of this low do stay markedly lower, and that wedge of green may be quite a bit further south across Scotland by the time we get there. It does present the risk of some substantial snow across the southern Highlands. Either way, it looks as though the freezing levels will drop again through into Friday, and cold temperatures then will dominate across Britain through into the weekend, again with higher Scottish mountains around the -4 to -5 mark. Freezing levels then around 600 to 800 metres, if not a bit lower across Scotland. Let's take you through the synoptic charts, and for Tuesday this is the powerful system then. The centre of the low is well up towards Iceland, but it's got a tight squeeze of the isobars around its southern flank and a frontal system that's sweeping rapidly eastwards. Torrential falls of rain then across western mountains throughout the day will turn to snow increasingly to lower levels as we go toward the later part of Tuesday as that cold front sweeps in. Wind will be in the range, 60 to 80 miles per hour, gusting over 100, I suspect, across the higher tops, particularly in the Highlands. And with quite a stable setup within that warm sector, it will force the air over the mountains, so some powerful gusts will get down to lower slopes in places to the lee of the high ground toward the north and the east. By Wednesday then, we're into a chillier westerly air mass, then a polar maritime flow originating around Iceland and Greenland, and it's further showers that will rattle their way in from the west. Those may cluster together for a time across Wales and the Pennines as this occluded front passes through. Across Scotland, it's more likely just to be a series of showers, one after another, coming into the West Highlands, a bit more scattered toward the eastern side of the Highlands, but some snow and some hail will fall with these two lower slopes. And it stays a windy day, not as bad as Tuesday, but still the risk of gales across the higher mountains. Significant severe wind chill maybe on the very highest tops. Now, Thursday's a very interesting one. We've got low pressure, a deep feature, which is coming in from the Atlantic. The exact track of the centre of this low is then crucial as just to what it does in terms of temperatures and who then sees snow or rain. Now, along the northern side of that frontal system, to the north of the warm front, the cold air is still very much in place, and there's the scope for some substantial snowfalls. The southern half of the Highlands, maybe even the southern uplands, could well see some snow persistent, heavy for a good number of hours, and may well fall to quite low levels through Thursday. Further north across the Highlands, the snow a bit patchier in nature. Across England and Wales, it may well start off as snow across the lakes and the Pennines, but more likely within the wedge of warm air in the warm sector, it all turns to rain for a good part of the day. Heavy rain across Wales. Once the cold front goes through, those freezing levels will tend to drop, which may well be more towards, say, Thursday night, and the snow level could just come back down onto the mountains by the time we get there. Strong winds possible too, gales across England and Wales. Across Scotland, more likely to be affected by the centre of the low, so possibly strong for a time, but also could well be a lull. Now, by the time we get to Friday, more or less all of us have been dragged back into the cold air, and the centre of low pressure is pulling eastwards. A very complicated feature. It may end up with a couple of separate centres by the time we finish with this. Everything rotating around it, and the absolute detail is open to some question. It could be the turn of the northern side of the Highlands to see more in the way of snow as the front rotates around from the north. There could be a zone of a front still affecting England and Wales, so chance for some snow across the lakes. the Pennines, across Snowdonia too. We'll watch the details at this stage. The wind strength, well, again, could be gale force for a time. It will really depend what the centre of that low does look like by then. Basically, it's chilly, and most of the precipitation across the mountains by this time is of snow, which is likely to be the case again into Saturday. Detail, once again, is very tricky. It's a bit of a mess. It's all a variety of occluded fronts going round in circles, basically. We're not dragging any milder air in. Notice where the frontal zone is across Biscay. That's where the genuinely milder air has been pushed away to. So although it's winds that are coming in more or less from the west, it's not dragging any genuinely milder air towards us. So freezing levels staying down, most of the precipitation again across the mountains falling as some snow, and even at times down to lower levels. Moving further ahead through the weekend into next week, and I'll show you this chart, which is a slightly different model to what I sometimes pick out. This is what we'd call an operational model. It's a bit more jumpy in its detail. It may not be strictly accurate in what it tries to pick out compared to the ensemble model that I often show you, which is a more averaging out of things. But what we can get from this is maybe just a feel for the sequence of weather that's coming in from the Atlantic. A series of lows is still going to be the order of things. Precise detail is almost anybody's guess at this time from day to day. But the message is one of the air that's originating around Greenland, Iceland, coming around to us from the north and the northwest. So although it's weather systems coming off the Atlantic, the air mass that's across us is still cold. It's still sub-zero on most of the mountains. We may just find that at times as the week goes on, some milder air gets dragged back in across England and Wales, and it may be a general lift of freezing levels for many places as time goes on next week. It still looks pretty unsettled. I think 1 or 2 days in there will do okay in between weather systems, but just expect some further periods of wind and rain and chiefly snow across most of the mountains, at times that falling again to lower levels. And it's a story which is likely to be around as we run further forwards. That's the week as a whole towards the 22nd of December, and low pressure is still more or less in charge. A chilly air mass is nearby. It's still a long way off to get the absolute detail towards Christmas. 1 or 2 indications start to push the frontal zones a bit further northwards, and if they do, it would allow milder air to come back in, but that's by no means set in stone at this stage. There's a lot to play for in the forecasting world in terms of what we get at Christmas for the moment. We'll keep an eye on things though, and I'll update you as we get nearer to the time in terms of what that Christmas period is going to bring to the mountains. Stay up to date then every day on our website for your local detail, and the next video will be online for you on Thursday. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.